Tonight, South Australia to finally open its border to New South Wales, and the government to invest millions into seafood production, a massive boost for Port Lincoln.
From our 7 Spencer Golf Studios, your nightly news with Louise Huber begins now.
Good evening. South Australia's borders are set to reopen to New South Wales tomorrow night ahead of the school holidays this Friday. Queensland is also set to open its borders to the eastern state this weekend as restrictions continue to ease.
Dusting off and rolling out the welcome mat for visitors from New South Wales. South Australia set to ease its border restrictions from Thursday.
It is now time, because of the reduced risk in New South Wales, for us to open up those borders.
Those travelling from the state into SA will no longer have to self-isolate for 14 days, but that all depends on there being no community transmissions in New South Wales today.
With time, and we do need to be patient with this disease and with the restrictions that were put in place in New South Wales, and also their extremely good contact tracing, they've managed to get on top of those seeding events and those clusters.
Broken Hill residents have been at loggerheads with the South Australian government to have an exemption for residents to cross the border. Today's news, a welcome relief for the community.
So we'd hoped it would be earlier. We understand concern, but here it is, it's happening, and we just want to make sure we stay open now.
Travellers who are currently in self-isolation in SA after touching down from New South Wales within the past 2 weeks will still need to complete their quarantine. With the borders set to open, it's good news for tourism operators with school holidays starting this Friday. Nathan Regter, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Multiple drink drivers have been caught in Whyalla over the past week, with one motorist blowing more than 4 times the legal limit. Police reiterating the dangers of getting behind the wheel while under the influence.
A 47-year-old Whyalla Stuart driver who allegedly returned a blood alcohol reading of more than 4 times the legal limit is among several Whyalla locals to receive hefty penalties for drink driving.
The woman was driving on Flinders Avenue in Whyalla Stuart on Saturday afternoon when she underwent a breath test which returned a blood alcohol reading of 0.220.
The woman was reported for drink driving, issued with an immediate 12-month loss of licence, and will appear in court at a later date. Police also impounded the vehicle of and fined a 26-year-old Whyalla Norrie man who allegedly returned a blood alcohol reading of 0.054.
A 62-year-old Whyalla Norrie man driving along the Lincoln Highway was also stopped by police in the early hours of Sunday morning. He returned a blood alcohol reading of 0.086 and was issued with an immediate 6-month loss of licence.
If we look at the types of crashes that we see on rural roads, many of them which are single vehicle crashes involving hitting fixed objects and rollovers are higher for drivers who've been detected with a concentration of alcohol in their systems.
Police increasingly frustrated with the string of drivers found under the influence while behind the wheel.
It's really sad to see people continually flaunt these laws. People know you cannot drink and drive.
If you do intend to be having more than one drink, then you really do need to make alternative arrangements to ensure that you stay below the 0.05 and you don't put yourself and other road users at risk.
Police asked locals who see anyone driving dangerously to contact them immediately. Sophia Contagonis, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Australia's seafood capital is set to get a whole lot bigger, with the state government injecting more than $1 million into 2 key projects. A local oyster hatchery and seafood business set to benefit with new facilities, creating much needed jobs.
Tucked away in the outskirts of Port Lincoln, a newly opened oyster hatchery is helping replenish much needed larvae or spat.
It's going to provide a buffer, a shock absorber for the production.
It's establishing a new spat bank helping grow juvenile oysters for farmers across Eyre Peninsula. The project will be partly funded by the state's Regional Growth Fund.
Of course, oysters have been through a tough time in the last 2 or 3 years, first with POMs and then with markets drying up with COVID.
2 projects on Eyre Peninsula will share in more than $1 million this round. The government says with private investment that will inject $2.5 million into the region and create more than 200 jobs.
It's been a challenging time, there's no doubt about that, but we've risen to the challenge, and investments such as this by the state government help those businesses with initiatives and with growth opportunities.
Now the challenge is just having big enough, hardy enough spat that's been acclimatised, good shape and robustness.
When the POMS virus hit Tasmania, the supply of spat to South Australia dried up overnight. Since then, through private and government initiatives, farmers have been able to develop and grow their own oysters here on Eyre Peninsula. The proposed facility here at Yumbar Hatchery set to further future-proof the whole industry.
It's going to provide enough spat to ensure continuous supply rather than the shocks that the industry's had in the past.
The team hope to have the new facility up and running by next winter. Nathan Regter, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Still to come tonight, police launch a new operation targeting dangerous driving and a voluntary assisted dying event held at Port Augusta. Welcome back. South Australia's school holidays are just days away and authorities are expecting an influx of travellers to flock to the regions. In response to more people on the road, police are cracking down on motorists using their mobiles while driving.
Authorities preparing to crack down and ensure those using our roads are safe.
Today marks the start of Operation Distraction, where police statewide will be targeting people using their mobile phones and inattention.
An influx of travellers are expected to come through the regions this weekend, with school holidays starting and many communities hosting their football grand finals.
Expect all the roads, particularly popular tourist destinations, to become busier than they've been for a long time, and obviously this will mean the roads themselves will also be busier.
We anticipate a lot of traffic using this highway. We really can't stress enough for people using that highway just to slow down. Police will be out in force.
Patrols across the region are working to stamp out incidents of distracted driving, as it can be extremely dangerous for the driver themselves and other road users. Penalties won't come lightly.
Drivers caught using a handheld mobile phone will receive an expiation notice for $604 and also lose 3 demerit points.
The blitz is ending on Sunday night, but police say they'll be launching a separate speeding campaign in preparation for the October long weekend. Shari Hams, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Voluntary assisted dying has been the subject of a community event held in Port Augusta. Advocates for the cause shared their stories as part of a push to see the laws change within South Australia.
Angie is an advocate for voluntary assisted dying. She's hoping to make a change within South Australia, hosting events about the issue right around the state.
Sad, very, very sad. You don't have to go too far to find really sad stories.
This one at Port Augusta, hearing stories around end-of-life treatment. The events hoped to shape future legislation in South Australia.
To continue the awareness, because Victoria has the legislation has been passed in WA, Tasmania is debating it at the moment, and there's just not much discussion here in South Australia.
These advocates wanting those laws to be introduced here too.
We give choice in everything else. What is it about end of life that is so hard to give a choice?
Guest speakers sharing their stories as to why they're so passionate about change.
Personal experience, back down to my nursing days when I was 19 and doing my training, and I just felt that there were people suffering that shouldn't be.
Laura Milovanovic, 7 Spencer Golf News.
A Port Augusta physiotherapy clinic has held a Healthy Knees information night. Residents from the city gathered to get an insight into how to relieve knee pain. This local physiotherapist says people in the regions shouldn't miss out on the latest medical technology and research.
This is something that has been available, or something like this has been available in the city for a while, but regional areas don't have access to a program like this, and so it's so important because people in the country have problems with their knees just like city people do.
The knee program will begin in 2 weeks. Stay with us. Coming up after the break, a Crystal Brook mural finally decided on, and a Port Augusta couple celebrates decades of marriage. Hello again. Grandparents from Port Augusta are today celebrating a momentous occasion, with today their 70th wedding anniversary. The 91 and 94-year-olds still live at home on their own and say they're very lucky to have lived the life that they have.
They first met in a cafe on Commercial Road in Port Augusta, today celebrating their platinum anniversary.
I was only 16 when we met, and my one and only love. Yeah. So we've had a good life.
Today marks 70 years since Faye walked down the aisle. As seems to be tradition with many weddings, the lead-up itself very eventful.
I was only 20. I didn't turn 21 until the January. And the day before the wedding, the minister came around in a panic because we hadn't got a permission from my parents.
With the parents' blessing, the wedding went ahead.
Dad was very pleased. He thought the world of Ken.
Back in the day, Ken was big on the footy field, even getting into the Central Augusta Football Club Hall of Fame.
Could have gone to Port Adelaide, but I decided to stop home with mother.
These days, Ken spends his days in the garden tending to his plants. The pair have 4 children living across Australia. They both say their lives have been devoted to being parents, something like one another they cherish very dearly.
So we've been busy, really, but it's all been nice, been good, lovely.
Faye just as in love as she was in 1950.
He's gorgeous. He loves... He's very kind and loving and loves the family. So that's about it. We just enjoy our family.
Laura Milovanovic, 7 Spencer Golf News.
The wait is finally over for the highly anticipated final design of the proposed Crystal Brook mural. Artists James Dodd and Jessica Turner have created the design in consultation with emerging Nakuna artist Jessica Taylor. They say the inspirational came from the region's agricultural and colonial history. Jessica Taylor says the warm colours used to represent the changing seasons. The mural will be painted on Building 33 on Bowman Street and is scheduled to be completed by the end of the month. A born and bred Whyalla soccer player is living out his dream, named Adelaide United's full-time coach for the club's A-League team. Carl Viert started his career playing with local clubs and is over the moon to be offered the coveted role.
Sealing the deal with a handshake, Adelaide United's new coach, now an inspiration to many young soccer players from across the Still City.
I'm very excited. It's something that I suppose I dreamed of doing one day, and to have the opportunity now, it's great.
Born and raised in Whyalla, Carl Viert's passion for the game started at a young age, playing for a local club throughout his teens.
So I played all my soccer and learnt my soccer, I suppose, in Whyalla, Croatia. So they played a big part in my upbringing in the community there.
From there, Carl signed for Adelaide City in the old National Soccer League, his career taking off in 1994 when he moved to England.
Had just over 4 years playing in England for Sheffield United and Crystal Palace and Millwall, and then returned back to Adelaide City, then into Adelaide United, so a very long journey.
A former Australian striker, Carl was also one of Adelaide United's inaugural A-League players. He scored the club's and the competition's first ever goal in 2005.
Just shows that with the right opportunities and good skill level and bit of luck, anything's achievable.
As for his new role, Carl says he has big things planned for next season, promising fans an entertaining style.
Hopefully they'll be exciting. We're going to play a fairly attacking, open brand football. I think we've shown in those last 5 games of last season how we're going to play, and that's what we're going to keep going on.
It's good for the whole region as well, I'd say, and for any regional area that someone from the country can go as far as he has gone.
Sophia Contagonis, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Stay with us after the break. We'll have the wrap-up of local sport and the weather with Britt. Welcome back. Football fans across the region have snapped up tickets to this weekend's grand final, with passes for the Port Lincoln and Spencer Golf League already sold out. More than 2,000 tickets were sold within hours of opening in Port Lincoln for the Tasman vs Wayback grand final, Well, 1,000 tickets for the Spencer Golf League A and B grades also sold out. Another 1,000 tickets are available for pre-sale only for the other grades. The Northern Areas Football League will have 600 tickets on sale tomorrow. It's been a busy week of sport across the region, with many football leagues, as we've heard, hosting their grand finals this coming weekend. In the Spencer Golf League, Port's A-grade side has been eliminated after being defeated by South Augusta in Saturday's clash. Shari Hams has the story.
Finals fever is in full swing as teams from across the region are wrapping up in what's been an unprecedented year of sport. South Augusta kept their premiership hopes alive with a strong performance against Port. Port opened scoring in the first minute with a goal to young Tyson Amy, but 4 unanswered goals saw South open up a 21-point lead at the first change. 8 goals to South in the next 3 quarters and just 4 to Port saw South run out a 43-point win. Darcy Kildia best on for South and Clayton Miller a booting 5 for the Port Augusta Bulldogs. South will now set their sights on this week's grand final, where they'll be looking to make it to 5 premierships in a row. Over to Whyala's Football League and Rapina have been eliminated, with Central Whyala booking their spot in the grand final with a 3-point win. Best players Marco Tensel and Wayne Piggott bringing the game home for the Roosters. They'll now be playing West Whyala, who finished the minor round top of the table. Down to Port Lincoln's league, it was a windy day for players who battled it out for a top spot. Marble Range were no match for the Tasman Roosters, going down by 10 points. Goal kickers Brett Harrison and Jesse Chandler both impacted the scoreboard by kicking 2 goals each. Tasmans will now meet Waybacks in the league's grand final this weekend. Over in the Northern Areas League, Oru smashed BMW, winning them a spot against Broughton Mundura at the grand final in Crystal Brook this weekend. Despite inaccurate kicking, South Clare got over Minman in Saturday's match at Riverton, setting up a showdown with BSR at Clare Valley's Oval. Over to Broken Hill Netball now, and St Joe's Jesters defeated Williama Red by 12 goals. It was a lose-lose for St Joe's against West Flames Red, with both teams not scoring 1 goal. West Flames Black smashed Wilmer Bullstrop 36-8. United were no match for the Morgies, losing by 18 goals. In Whyala's Soccer A grade, the Lions came out on top against Westlands, defeating them by 2 goals. Still were no match for the Wanderers, also being defeated by 2 goals. Croatia had its bye. Over in Port Pirie, all school soccer games were cancelled due to bad weather conditions. The next set of fixtures will be this weekend, when the trophies for those who finished top of the ladder will be revealed. That's all for sport from across the region. Join us next week for full coverage of the region's football grand finals.
And for a look at what's happening in the weather, especially this weekend, here's Britt.
Thank you, Louise. 21 degrees was the region's high today, recorded at Port Augusta and Port Pirie. Whyalla not far behind, reaching a top of 20 degrees today. 19 was the high at Broken Hill. It reached 18 degrees at Woodna, Kadina and Cleve. Port Lincoln recorded a top of 17 degrees, with Adelaide and Clare both reaching 16. From the satellite, cloud about the South Australian coast and the Spencer Gulf triggered some showers today, thanks to a trough and cold air mass. Skies were clearer over the north of the state under a high pressure system. So that was today, but let's take a look at tomorrow, and there is a strong wind warning in place for the Spencer Gulf, with westerly winds reaching up to 25 knots about northern waters. To the south, winds up to 30 knots, but decreasing to 20 to 25 knots later in the afternoon. Seas at 1 to 1.5 metres, but increasing to up to 3 metres in the south, swells up to 3 metres in southern waters as well. A possible shower forecast for Port Lincoln tomorrow, most likely in the morning or afternoon, otherwise partly cloudy with a high of 17 degrees. Cleve also 17, with partly cloudy conditions expected. Woodna fine and 18. Whyalla partly cloudy tomorrow with a top of 19 degrees. Similar conditions for Port Augusta, looking at a top of 20. Kadina with a 50% chance of showers in the morning and afternoon, a top of 17. A partly cloudy day for Port Pirie, tomorrow with a high of 18 degrees. Clare, showers and 13. Broken Hill, partly cloudy with a top of 19 degrees. Taking a quick look ahead to Thursday now, showers expected about the west coast as well as the lower Eyre and York peninsulas. Mostly fine elsewhere with tops of 21 degrees for Port Augusta and Whyalla. Port Pirie 20. Broken Hill, Woodna and Kadina all 18. A top of 16 degrees for Port Lincoln. Friday, strong winds to the north with showers across much of the region. Maximum temperatures sitting in the mid-teens with a top of 15 degrees for Woodner, Port Pirie and Kadina. And it looks like we'll have a fine and partly cloudy start to the weekend on Saturday. Port Augusta and Woodner both with tops of 18 degrees. Whyalla, Broken Hill and Port Pirie all 17. And Louise, that's it for today's forecast. With that, it's back to you.
All right, thanks, Brett. And that's your local news for this Tuesday evening. We'll see you later with updates. Good night.